Break
The sound
that
of
lock
splintering wood
now!
cracked through the quiet suburban morning like a gunshot. Neighbors peeked through blinds, coffee mugs frozen halfway to their lips, as a woman in a pastel cardigan swung a metal crowbar into a brand new wooden fence. Her face was twisted with righteous fury. "I warned you," she shouted, her voice shrill and sharp. "You people never listen." On the other side of the fence, Marcus Hill stood perfectly still, his hands clenched at his sides, watching the boundary he'd worked months to build collapse piece by piece. Marcus hadn't always lived in this neighborhood. Growing up, he'd learned early how to keep his head down and work twice as hard for half the recognition. After years of overtime shifts as a civil engineer, he finally bought his dream home, a modest but beautiful house with a wide backyard for his two kids to play in. The fence wasn't about exclusion. It was about safety, privacy, and pride. He'd followed every rule, pulled every permit, and even paid extra to match the HOA's approved design. Or so he thought. The woman destroying it was Linda Carver, the HOA board president. To most residents, she was helpful and organized. To Marcus, she'd been a constant shadow. From the day he moved in, she found reasons to stop by, complaints about grass length, questions about his guests, comments disguised as concern. "This neighborhood has standards," she liked to say, smiling tightly. Marcus always responded calmly, refusing to give her the reaction she seemed to crave. The fence was the final straw for Linda. She claimed it crossed HOA property by 6 inches, though her measurements changed every time Marcus asked for proof. He'd requested a formal review, submitted survey documents, and asked for time. Linda denied all of it. "If you won't fix it," she'd snapped over the phone that morning, "I will." Now she was making good on that threat, crowbar rising and falling as wood snapped and nails screamed free. Marcus felt a familiar heat in his chest, the same mix of anger and humiliation he'd felt his whole life when people assumed he didn't belong. His children watched from the back door, confusion and fear in their eyes. His wife whispered, "Marcus, please don't do anything." He nodded, took out his phone, and hit record. "Ma'am," he said steadily, his voice calm despite the storm inside him, "you are damaging my property. I've asked you to stop." Linda laughed without turning around. "This is HOA property," she said. "And you should have thought about that before building something you didn't have permission for." Her words dripped with satisfaction, like this moment had been waiting for her. Within minutes, neighbors gathered. Some murmured uncomfortably, others filmed. A few looked away, pretending not to see. Marcus called the non-emergency police line, explaining the situation carefully, fact by fact. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He simply told the truth. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up, lights flashing softly. Linda froze, crowbar still in hand. She straightened her cardigan and turned on a practiced smile. "Oh, officer," she began, "thank goodness you're here. This man built an illegal fence on HOA land, and I was just..." The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, we'll get to that. Can you put the tool down?" His partner approached Marcus, who calmly handed over his phone, the video still recording. He also provided copies of his survey, permits, and HOA email exchanges, documents he'd learned to keep ready after months of quiet harassment. The officers reviewed everything carefully. They walked the property line, measured the boundary, and listened to witnesses. Linda's confidence began to crack. Her explanations grew louder, more defensive. "You don't understand," she insisted. "He's always causing problems. He doesn't follow the rules like everyone else." The words hung heavy in the air. One officer looked at her sharply. "Ma'am, what rules did he break today?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The senior officer turned to Marcus. "Sir, this fence is fully within your property. You have valid permits. And this video shows clear destruction of private property." He then turned back to Linda. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for vandalism and trespassing." The gasp from the crowd was audible. Linda's face drained of color as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "I'm the HOA president." "That doesn't put you above the law," the officer replied calmly. As Linda was escorted to the patrol car, Marcus felt something unexpected, not triumph but relief. A weight he'd carried for months finally lifted. His kids stepped outside, their fear replaced with awe. His wife squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. Neighbors who'd never spoken to him before offered quiet apologies, some admitting they'd seen Linda's behavior for years but had been too afraid to speak up. In the days that followed, the HOA launched an internal investigation. Linda was removed from her position. The HOA paid for the fence repairs and issued Marcus a formal apology. But more than that, something shifted. People smiled at him now, not out of obligation, but respect. He was invited to join the HOA committee, not as a token, but as a voice of fairness. Marcus rebuilt the fence, stronger than before. As he hammered the final plank into place, he realized the fence had never been the real boundary. The real line was about dignity, about knowing when to stand firm without becoming bitter, about trusting truth over anger. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't lost himself. And in doing so, he'd shown his children something far more powerful than revenge. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it arrives quietly, 10 minutes late, with flashing lights and steady hands. And when it does, it reminds us that no matter how small someone tries to make you feel, your dignity, your patience, and your truth are stronger than any crowbar.